Welcome to the channel where all you gotta do is put a V10 in this old Mustang. Okay, so now that I have some structure in here, and there's something holding the front half of the car to the back half of the car, I got rid of that guy now. So I'm going to need to put the floor in there and make sure it fits. However, it's always a scatterbrained plan I have, because I don't know that the engine transmission placement is going to fit with this cross member. So the next thing I need to do, I'm going to get this all cleaned up in here, wire brushed and some primer on there. The next thing I'm going to do is get the motor mocked up in position, I think, unless my plan changes again. Okay, so I got a little bit more cleaned up on the floor there. See, it's shiny in some spots. And I also got an engine and transmission sort of in place. It's about a foot too low right now, but it's that's about where it's going to live. Forward, back. So, yeah. As expected, the shifter is about 5 inches farther back than the shifter hole, but that's not a big deal. We can make that work. And then I think I can articulate the motor around. These mounts here are going to have to go away, but I think I can just tip it up on an angle and get it through there, just to get it mocked in place, to make sure I'm going to have... The reason I'm putting this in right now is to make sure I have clearance to the transmission mount and tunnel and all that stuff. So if I don't, I'll have to modify that guy. Alright, it's a rainy new day out. But I see a V10 in a Mustang. Well, maybe partial Mustang, but kind of like a Mustang. So that's approximately where it's going to live. Nothing too surprising about the install. Doesn't really hang out of the bottom of the car too much, except for in a couple of small spots, which is I was kind of sure it was gonna. That little piece right there, which I'm not sure what that's for. That's probably gonna get trimmed off. And then the exhaust hanger probably doesn't need to be there. Obviously the shifter, I pulled that off because it's going to be about 3/4 of a mile too far back. I'll do something better for a motor mount here. That's probably not going to work while we're driving. But it is really tight in here, and I'd like to raise the transmission up a little bit if I could, but it's pretty tight in here as well. And I get my finger in there. It's about as close as I'd like to run it. So I think what I'm going to do is modify this, so get rid of this material here and just go straight across from there to there. And then the floor will be the same height, but this inside will have a little bit less structure, sure, but more clearance. So I think that's what I'm going to do. And then I'll have to whittle up a motor mount or a transmission mount. The original plan was to have this motor move back like 5 inches, but that didn't work out because of my Ackerman steering had to work. I was going to try to run the rack in front here, and the location of the Ackerman of the rack needed to be, you know, like here. So there was like a 5-inch, 6-inch change from where the motor could live, in order to make the Ackerman work with the steering rack. So it would have been like completely new floor and tunnel, right? Because that tunnel would have come back a mile, and then my shifter would have been like, I couldn't just shorten the shifter. I would have to have actually like made it go forward, which means now the shifter has to go through the floor. So I have a weight and balance program where I stuck it in there and like, okay, what does it do to my weight and balance if I shift the motor and transmission forward, 6 inches? And it made it, it made it worse. It made it from 55% on the rear wheels to 52, something like that. So it's still reasonable. I still want to have a little bit of weight bias in the rear, something over 50%, but not a lot. Not like the Sonda, which is 60-40. But that's a different beast. Engines in the back, blah blah blah. But I think this is pretty much where it's going to live. It's just behind just in front of, maybe an inch in front of the firewall, which is, I think, approximately where I have it in CAD. It might be an inch and a half. So I have to go look at my CAD and see actually where I have it, but it's fairly close to where this is living right now. What I'm going to do now is, because I like jumping around, I'm going to get rid of these shock towers and delete them anyway, because heads don't fit on. Kind of important. It's going to have to get done, cleaned up anyway, so I'm going to take a little time on this rainy afternoon and removalize those. Maybe make some patch panels, probably not. And then just kind of wire brush all this. There's a bunch of disgusting stuff. Here's somebody welded the hinges. Inserts back in poorly. So I'm not going to use those hinges anyway. But we'll just, we'll spend a couple hours and get this, tidied up. I know what you're thinking. Give this guy a couple more weeks and there won't be a car left. And I get it. Anyways, I sawed all the co-pilot side shock towers off, which is pretty hefty. This is like, I don't know, 15 pounds or something. That mess, and then that. And the reason I just sawed it off with a big, I used a lot of these tools here, but mostly that guy. Put a slicey in there with that, like this side. I preemptively sliced it. And down here, and here. And the reason I did that is because, like, you could totally drill these guys out. Drill all these spot welds out, and that would totally work. But this thing is really, really stiff. So trying to get in there with a, well, you could use the air hammer or you could use this little guy. To get these spot welds out is really hard. And then once this thing's all out of the way, like, you can see how the structure is attached to the frame. This is the frame. So now that's easy to get in there and drill, and you can see what you're doing. The same thing inside here. There's some spot welds inside of that you can't even see, right? So just saw all the shit away, and then they're easy to see, and I didn't really do much cleaning up on this yet, but I wanted to show, what it all looked like. And then the person that owned this car before me, I think he owned a baseball bat, but maybe not a hammer, maybe not a very good welder. This thing, there was like 3 welds in here that were actually holding anything in. It's the ones where it's kind of bent. The other ones, they snap like a twig. So I think I can either buy a new one of these. This has got a big wrinkle in it, but I think I can straighten that out and clean it up, paint it, and reuse it. The biggest issue was up here. That wasn't even holding anything. He he blew a hole through there and but it was a mess. And then underneath everything, they didn't clean anything off and put weld-through primer on it, so it's just a big rust pile. On this is on the inside of the welds, inside here. So, and you could see how fucked up it was from the outside. Looks like they actually used a spot weld remover there, so that's nice. But this seems fine. I'll just have to clean this up and kind of fix on it a little bit. The other side's all virgin material over here. This is all factory metal. So this should go, well, I won't need to take that out. But this guy here is just barely in, and all these welds here are kind of suspect. Basically, I think I'm gonna, if I put this guy here and tap it with a hammer, that thing will probably just fall out of there. So, and it's probably, there's no weld-through primer on the back side, so it's just gonna be a big rusty mess on the inside anyway. So I'll probably take that off and realign it, and you know, it's like something that could take an hour now, but if you want to fix it later, it's gonna take 20. So yeah, see, this is just a mess in here. I don't know how good so I'll pop that guy off and reattach more appropriately and then I'll get all this junk out of here. This is part of the frame rail, right? This is the pinch weld in the frame rail. And then this has got, there's a weld down here I got to get out, and this one, a couple in here. And then all of these will be easier to get out. This is the material that I want to save, and this wants to go away. So I'll just drill all these spot welds out from the hard side, this side, but then this is the material that's going to go in the dumpster anyway, and I won't have holes in that. So then I can decide where I want to put the holes. Anyway, and then this is not really, that's not really attached, but it's kind of sandwiched in between this piece and this piece, so that should be interesting. But I'm kind of glad this was fucked up on this side. I wonder if there's a reason that Ford puts the VIN number on one side and the battery on the other. T-code terror right there. Anyway, don't know if that's why they do it, but this side always gets rusted out. My previous 67, 66 Mustangs all had a rusted out battery tray thingy, which the battery's not going to be in here anyway, so I may just throw this in the dumpster and make a panel that looks like that with a penis drawn on it, of course. Maybe mimic it so it's a mirror image on this side. Maybe I'll do that. I don't know. We'll see. I keep changing my plans, so that seems like more work, but okay, well that was an hour of fun. But shock covers are off now, and radiator support. There was like 3 decent welds in the whole, holding the whole thing on. The rest were absolutely garbage. Okay, spend a little bit more time on this. Not necessarily on this, but I got a bunch of these little mounty things off. On that side, and then this side you can see where I drilled the rivets out, or the spot welds out. And then all the thick material from the shock tower. Got those out of there, which were kind of sandwiched in between. Right, this thing was, let's see, how was it? Like that. So, no, like that. Anyway, randomly spaced rivets. Another 5 pounds of junk. And some of these I didn't do a very good job on, but I'll clean that all up. And we'll make a patch panel for this side. And I think what I'm going to do for the other side is make a patch panel that does the entire, like it's just flat like this one is. It doesn't have the battery tray in there. So instead of having a weld on the front side there, it'll just be one piece. But I don't have a bead roller, so I can't put any of this fancy stuff in there. That thing's going to be an NVH disaster. So anyway, we'll have to science out what to do about that. Maybe use my English wheel to put a little curvature to it, or I don't know. I'll think of something. Anyway, and then I got to figure out how to brace this thing a little bit better, right? This is just factory frame rails. So I probably want to stiffen that up a little bit, but I haven't really decided how I want to do it. I mean, it's got this thing connected to the torque box, which is something, but maybe I'll box that up into here. There's really no structure there. So that's not scienced out yet, but that's pretty much normal for me. But I think I took about 50 pounds out of the front of the car with, you know, metal and undercoating and rust and road grime. Okay, so I got a little bit more done. Ground all the nubs off of there. And on the inside, all the nubs are ground off. I'm trying to clean this up and do some hammer and dolly work, but this thing's pretty messed up. So I'm gonna probably have to address that. This shotgun's kind of messed up as well, but I think I can make it work. So yeah, I got all this stuff, all the little bumpies ground off of there. These are still fucked up, but I'm not going to use those. But I'm going to have to take a hole saw and drill those out and then plug those. But it's all looking okay. So I got to get these guys off, which is fun. Drilling, laying on your back, drilling up, and save that for after Christmas. And then, before I get that floor in, made some patch panel here so I can get a little more, another ½ inch or so of clearance to the transmission, so I can raise the transmission up a little bit more. And then my ground clearance will be more acceptable. I also, I don't know if you can see this, but these little marks here, probably can't, because there we go. Alright, see these little marks right here? So I'm going to have to put notches in that for the exhaust. There's going to be a 3-inch exhaust coming from each bank. And then I need to put a hole in here and put a tube through it as a pass-through on both sides. So there, so I'm going to have to drill a hole here, probably an inch, inch and a half here, and then a 3.5 here, 3.5 here, inch and a half here. Okay, so one of the other things I said I was going to get done is pass-throughs for the exhaust. So the way I did that, I took some scrap steel. These are just drop-offs from a 3-inch hole saw, and I don't know, 2-inch hole saw, something like that. So I just sparkleized, welded those two where I wanted the pass-through. Just like that. And then I took my hole saw. You could use a screwdriver or whatever for a pilot. And then I drilled it halfway from one side, halfway from the other side. I used this guy to finish the little bit left. And now I have a 3.5-inch hole, which of course I'm not going to leave like that. I'm going to put a full circle inside there to get the strength back, right? Because this is pretty much doesn't have any strength. I don't think this is going to be my transmission support now anyway, but it will improve the NVH of the vehicle. It won't let the floor, this is like floor stiffener kind of stuff. So I'll probably just put another brace here where the transmission's mount is back here somewhere. So, but I'll put a piece in there, weld it on the inside, just like I did this here. And obviously, I'm only halfway done because I got, well, not even halfway. I got to cut another one in this side over here. I'll probably just chop these guys off, weld them back on, and make some more chips fly. Well, there it is, in the hole. So I wanted to get this thing placed in here so I can make the transmission mounts for it. So that's its final resting position. The drive shaft is 1 inch off center from the center line of the vehicle. So that's how the transmission tunnel is designed. So kind of have to follow that unless I want to make a new transmission tunnel, which is fine. This is my cobbled job here to get more clearance. So that's good. I might need to put a little bump in there. See where that little Sharpie mark is? There's a sensor there that probably don't need. I'll have to look into what that sensor does. I might just delete it, but I might need it. So I may have to put a little bulge right there. It's no big deal. Just whittle something up and on the press form thing and spark it in there. So I did decide I'm going to get rid of this as a mount, and I'm going to make my own mount that kind of comes through here and then saddles across there. The challenge to that is it's got to have clearance for the exhaust just like this guy does, but I think that's not a problem. Everything else looks pretty good. Doesn't look like there's any connections on the transmission that are going to get into anybody else's territory. I think lots of room there to get to the cooler. There. I put the oil pan on just to make sure my CAD is correct and the rack is going to live where it's supposed to live. So I'm going to have to design a cross member for that. The stock motor mounts are not going to work. As a matter of fact, well, the motor mounts themselves, I'm going to have to saw this little, like this motor is centered in here, and this is just like, I don't know. If you took a centimeter off it, it would clear by a mile. So, well, clear by a centimeter. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to modify these guys. I'll find a new place for the ground, which is fine. But this motor sits way low in here. Like the throttle bodies only are here. And then even with the plenums that are going to sit on top of it, which are 5 inches round, I'm still going to have 5 inches of hood clearance, which is great because I need that for my extractor hood. So same thing over here, just barely misses. So I'll just modify those up. And then the stock mounts, these are the stock isolators. I guess not mounts. There's no way they're going to fit in there. It's just, they're too large and in charge. So I'm just going to use a little donut. I think the 3 series uses those. And I'm not too concerned about load on them because these are sticking out so far that it doesn't have much leverage to, well, it has a lot of leverage to react the torque. So I think that's going to be fine. So yeah, this is going to be in here for the time being, just to make sure I got to build the bars that come here, and then the turbo is going to live right in here, which looks like I have plenty of room. The down pipe is going to be the only challenge. That side's got a lot more room on it because the power steering, or the steering rack lives down there, as well as the power booster and the portioning valve, all kinds of shit lives over there. So that one kind of kicks out a bit, if you can see it, but this guy's kind of flat in here. It's like the opposite. On this side, it just goes straight down on the back, but on the front, it's got a bulge in for the battery. And this side, it just goes straight down, but on that side, it's got a bulge in for the power booster and steering box and all that, rag joint and all that junk. So I really would like it to be symmetrical, but I'm not sure I want to fabricate a new that or a new that or a mirror image of that to put over here. But I think the turbo is, that's why I got such tiny turbos. Well, tiny in size and stature, but not in flow. And then up here, I got tons of room, right? I haven't decided whether I'm going to use the stock radiators, but since this thing is, I cleaned this guy up a little bit, kind of took all the boogers out of the, whatever the fuck they were using for a shitty welder. Still probably have a little bit more work to it. That's kind of janky there, but once I decide what radiator I'm going to use, or if I'm going to use the stock ones, I can modify this core support to get those either a new radiator in there or the ones that came out of the M6, which I have in the wine cellar. But yeah, everything here is looking pretty good. I mean, look at that. It's in the hole. It looks like it's supposed to be there. I got about an inch of clearance. Maybe slightly less than an inch right in here. That's plenty. So this isn't really squirting anything. I'm on this 2x4 here. Just happened to hold it in the right spot. And this motor is about on a 3 degree angle, which is what you want. You don't want it perfectly straight. So it's actually a little less than that because the car is a little bit crooked. The car's like 1 degree on an angle. But as long as you know that, you're good. So anyway, I may take this opportunity to figure out where I'm gonna put all the hoses and stuff, because that M6 had 1,000 hoses on it. Everything from power steering hoses that went to nowhere and back to, you know, fuel to vacuum pumps to, you know, just a billion hoses. And I really want to clean that up to make this look, you know, less convoluted. So I may take this opportunity to kind of science some of that stuff out, and then document what I'm going to do, and then when I pull the motor out, I can just do it. Thanks for watching. If you like this content and want more, subscribe, like, and share.